You're listening to Nick Fon's Law of Attraction in Action show. Find out more at www.thebarefootbroadcast.com. Now, I don't know if you can hear me tapping out those jungle drums on my desk there, Nick. Very excited to have you on because I do believe we have you here in person on the Barefoot Broadcast this evening. So wonderful to welcome you to the new Law of Attraction in Action show, 9 till 10 p.m. on a Tuesday with Nick Fon. Good evening and welcome to you, Nick, and welcome to your brand new show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everything. It's just absolutely wonderful. I'm loving the Barefoot Broadcast. You're all doing such a good job.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And your recording's fabulous as well. So we have got that on standby. And that's a lovely insight into how the law of attraction is working in people's lives. But, do you know, I think this will be it'll be great on this show to do an introduction to you, an introduction to the law of attraction, go back to basics a bit rather than necessarily hit the ground running. We can have a nice fireside chat, can't we, about the law of attraction and why you're so interested in it, why it's changed your life, how you got into it, and so that everybody can find out a bit more about you. What would you like to tell us about you, first of all?
I think for me, I've always been interested in kind of self-development and self-help from quite a young age. I can't deal with negative emotion or discomfort very easily. I have to get out or do something. I've got quite a high sensitivity. And that was when I was a lot younger. And I think the first book that I came across was Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And then it was the past 2 or 3 years that I came across Louise Hay and her work. And I'd always known of her work, but it was a bit, I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. But there was a nice resonance about it for me. Just reading it just made me feel a little bit warmer, a little bit nicer. And then I was listening to her CDs, and actually I find the CDs, and especially with YouTube, and everything that's come out nowadays, things are so much more accessible. It's not just reading like your paperback book in front of you. There's more interaction these days.
That's so true, Nick. That's so true, isn't it? I mean, you make a very, very interesting point there. Susan Jeffers, of course, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, and Louise Hay. And I remember seeing those books myself. What sort of age were you when you came across the work of those two ladies?
I think I was about 17, 18, I came across Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And I read it once, and it didn't make sense. And I read it again for whatever. I remember I was just in the library, flicking through some books, and then that just caught my eye, as these things do. And I just read it, and it just spoke to me. And that's the thing with the work of Law of Attraction, Abraham, Louise Hay, or any author. You may come across it, or somebody may force it on you, and you read it, and it won't resonate with you. But when the timing's right, you will hear every word they say, and that will, I can't remember what you called it, but it's the ping in your belly or your mind is like, yes, that's for me. And that was it. And then for a few years, I didn't really, do too much. That was a nice point. And then the past 2 or 3 years, I came across Louise Hay again, and that was absolutely amazing.
How old are you now, may we ask?
I'm 28 now.
You had a bit of a Skype bounce there, protecting your age. You don't need to say it again unless you wish to. 28. Saturn return. Very interesting. But what an early starter you were as well. And you make the point there that those were the days of the paperback book, and we weren't surrounded as we are now by social media and incredible speed of sharing. Because you're right, somebody might slip you a paperback, mightn't they? Or you might see it at a friend's house. And pretty much, spirituality was a closet thing, even 10 or 11 years ago is when we're talking about. But in the last 5 years, certainly the last couple of years, things are going into an incredible spin, aren't they? Of a vortex, if you like, if I may use that word, of incredible information sharing, and things have changed so drastically. And I'm sure, a 17-year-old now who suddenly got interested in Susan Jeffers, Louise Hay, or Abraham Hicks would just be able to type it into Google and be inundated with exactly the sort of information they wanted.
Exactly. I mean, especially with YouTube and stuff. And what I do love about this age is that, there is so much abundance, but it's all pretty free if you needed a computer, which most people have anyway, and the internet. And you can access the best minds in the world. And, I've got the demographics on my YouTube channel. And there are some 12, 15-year-olds. The generation is just so phenomenal, and there's so many ways to connect. And I think we live in the best times ever. We always do, wherever you are. But You know, you don't have to be the richest person to access all this knowledge, whereas back in the day, you know, it would have been harder to access Abraham Hicks. I remember one of the people who wrote a spin-off of their book, they're like, if you had some money, you could, you know, kind of look Abraham Hicks up. But this was the early days when they didn't have the internet and they were just touring as they were across the US. So someone from the UK wouldn't almost certainly not have access to that. So, you know, it's great.
Incredible, isn't it? Yes, you see, the funny thing is, the times you're speaking about, and you call it back in the day, I'm talking about it like it's like 50, 100 years ago. It's not that long ago, is it? Let's face it. But things have changed so drastically, as we're saying, and these are the times that I'm thinking, like, midlife crisis. It wasn't until people got to the age you're at now, which is like, you know, the Saturn return, where they might start thinking about things, having had, you know, 4 lots of 7 years on the planet. Their body's gone through some complete cycles, and they're reflecting on their sort of teenage life and their 20s. That might be one trigger point for looking into personal growth. It was for me. But then there was the midlife crisis, which is another trigger point, people getting to their 40s. But not you, 17 years of age, and there you are seeking and searching. What do you think brought that on?
I think it was, I just can't deal with discomfort. Like, if I feel uncomfortable in a situation, I have to either get out or change it or something. And for me, at that age, I think I wasn't comfortable in my skin, and I used to worry a lot. I used to stress because I'm still a bit of a control freak. I like to, you know, do all these things and lead all these things, and that's always been a part of me. And I think even then it was just like, you know, there has to be something more, and it just spoke to me, you know, just hit down, and I was like, this really makes sense. So for me,
this is in the public library. You're looking at the self-help books in the public library, are you, at 17 years of age?
Yeah, I can't remember what brought me to that. I've always been interested in psychology and body language and that kind of thing, so it just happened to be in that area. I mean, it's so long ago, but it's so second nature to me that that's just the way that's the way. I mean, I've always been described as a sensitive kid, so I've always been quite attuned to that. So, and again, I really can't deal with discomfort. So, you know, I just like, okay, there has to be something more to this. So for me,
all right, and then anyone has looked at your photo on the Barefoot Broadcast website or on your other sites, social media and so on, we'll see you're a Chinese guy. My mother's Chinese, and we can have an interesting chat here, I think, can't we, about how this East meets West thing. You know, I'm East meets West in one body. You're obviously of a Chinese background living in the West. Do you think that's had an effect on your interest in spirituality and philosophy?
I think in the broadest sense of the word, because, you know, different psychics and mediums have said that seems to be my link in a past life. To be completely honest, I am a Londoner through and through. My parents weren't particularly religious or spiritual, so whatever came through me came through spirit or past life or who I really am or whatever. Because I mean, I was raised Roman Catholic in London, and that's kind of what I would identify with. But from the kind of ethnic point of view, I think going back, that seems to be the energy about me, I guess.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because you could be forgiven for looking at one of your websites and seeing your picture and you're thinking, yeah, Taoist, Confucianist, but no, Roman Catholic, a bit like my mother, you know, Chinese woman, but there she is, raised in a convent, and you're thinking, wow, how did that happen? But I'm so glad that the Taoist genes are in there somewhere.
Energetically. I mean, for me, like, I am who I am. I like hip-hop music. I'm quite contraire in my interests. You know, I don't do spirituality in a kind of traditional way. I'd have hip-hop blasting with swearing, and I'd have Abe on, and, you know, it's just, and I spoke to Abe about that. I'm like, all these different interests, like technology and hip-hop, it's quite different, diverse, but as the world is progressing, they are coming to the forefront. Like, hip-hop's running the charts. Everyone's got an iPod or something. What is that about? And Abraham just said to me, it's just you feeling good, you linking with what feels good, and then, you know, that's influencing and spreading out there. So
listen to him, everybody. Name-dropping Esther in there. You slipped that in beautifully. And we've got a lot in common, my friend, because the first time I heard some of the early hip-hop music, I was completely blown away. It used to be called electro when I was into it. And at that point, I don't know if well, you would have been probably in nappies, I think. I don't know. I'm not, no disrespect, and I don't want to start a kind of hip-hop gangster war here by saying things like that. But we've got a lot in common. Yeah, I love the old school hip-hop and rap and electro music, and maybe we should do another different show about that.
That'd be so cool.
In fact, I was listening to a Wu-Tang Clan clip this morning, and they're very much into their sort of Taoist kung fu philosophy, I think, aren't they?
Yeah, I remember them reading something like that, but there's also so much conscious rap. I mean, I'm not familiar with that particular scene, but I know there's a lot of conscious rap, and even a number of weeks ago, a rapper was in the hot seat speaking to Abe, and they're like, I like to use the word, the F word when I'm rapping. How does that speak of my alignment? And Abe like, words are just words. It's how you feel inside when you use them, and anything else is, periphery.
That makes so much sense, doesn't it? It's the conversation we can have about ritual, isn't it? That ritual is definitely there to kind of suggest something to you, but if there's what is it in the Taoist? Going back to the Taoist, I know in the Tao Te Ching it says ritual is the husk of true faith, and that's what it can become, can't it? If you mistake the outer wrapper, no, pardon the pun there, for what may or may not be going on inside. The truth is, you don't know what's going on inside anyone else, do you? But you definitely know what's going on inside yourself, and that, I'm sure, is going to be what we're talking about a lot this evening. So, actually, let me just remind everybody where we are, Nick. I'm going to play your jingle, and I'll be right back after this to discover when you had your law of attraction light bulb moment, when you really got into the LOA stuff.
You're listening to Nick Fon's Law of Attraction in Action show. Find out more at www.thebarefootbroadcast.com.
We're getting a bit of feedback from the chat room. I'm talking to Nick Fon, incidentally. This is the Barefoot Broadcast. I'm the Barefoot Broadcast. LOA Gary, and they're obviously an LOA fan, a Law of Attraction fan there, was talking, I think, connecting. It's funny with things such as Blog Talk Radio, YouTube, etc. I don't read books. I prefer audios, says Angela. Things are changing, aren't they, in the way that we're getting this information. Now, how did you get your first bit of information about the law of attraction? How did it start filtering through into your life and experience?
I looked at Louise Hay stuff. I really got into her, and I started listening to CDs. And then from that, I looked at Hay House authors, and they've got a great host of authors, like Cheryl Richardson and all these other wonderful people. And I was doing my affirmations, and life was good, but there seems to be no deliberate influence. I'm like, well, I'm saying all these affirmations, but I don't see anything changing on the outside. People are still the same, and everything's just still the same. So I thought, I was always looking for that key for me, and it was a key that I was really looking for, something to just say, okay, well, I'm doing the work, but nothing's really happening, And then from there, I saw Abraham, Esther, and Jerry Hicks on You Can Heal Your Life DVD. And I thought they were great, but the information, like Louise Hay when I first found it, just completely went over my head. I just did not understand it. Even listening to that half-an-hour interview on the DVD now, it's so they cover so much within that half an hour. Even now I have trouble, picking up everything they say. But there was something about it. It just felt nice. So I just had it on in the background then. And then, to speed along, I remember just, I was at work, I clicked on a YouTube clip, and I just heard them speak, and I was like, wow, that's absolutely phenomenal. And I watched all their YouTube clips. I watched them speak, and that blew me away, and I just listened to them quite a lot for quite a while. I think this was about maybe 2 or 3 years ago, something like that. And I just listened to it over again, as anyone who knows, it's absolutely amazing. And then I was still looking for that key. I'm like, okay, well, law of attraction is this, and if you do this and say this, then this will happen. But again, there was no, things weren't changing on the outside. And I was like, it still doesn't look like I'm having a deliberate influence. I could kind of put the pieces together and get it, but there was just something, again, there was just something missing. And then I heard they were going to Mexico cruise, and because I've been to Camp America, I was familiar with the US, so I'm always used to traveling back and forth between the US and London. So I thought I just want to hear them speak, and then not coming to London. This was after they appeared in London. I didn't even know they were in London or they did any of that. But I thought the cruise sounds nice. I just want to go along and see what happens. So I just went completely on my own. And that was January the following year. And I was listening to them speak, and, you know, it was a good experience, but not the most comfortable because such a high vibration, so much to take in. And then I heard them say, focus will, focus will, focus will. They just spoke about that constantly. This was their thing at the time. And I tried to do it, and I just did not get it. It was not working. I was like, okay, well, that's nice. But again, you know, I didn't get it. And then on the cruise, I heard there was an Abraham group going on in London. And I thought, okay, well, that would be really nice to have other people to speak to. Because while I can talk to my sister or my friends about this, unless you're really involved in it, it's hard for people to get it. And then I went along to the group I went to the cruise in January, I think it was 2009. And then I went to the group in maybe February, March 2009. And then, that was Michael's group, and he runs that in London. He still does. It's become phenomenally popular. And then they spoke of the focus wheel there, and I still didn't get it. But this wonderful guy called Neil, he just sat me down for 5 minutes, taught me through a focus wheel and the way that he did it. And I thought, okay, well, that's nice. And I think he did it about business or money or something. And then a couple of days later, I think I was being charged too much or something, and just emailed me saying, oh, we've released you from that charge, don't worry about it. I thought, okay, now we're on to something. You know, something deliberate I did, and I saw the result. And you can't, it's vibrational, you know. I didn't go up and speak to them, it just happened. And then things just started getting faster and faster for me. I started doing my focus wheel. I started teaching my friends and my family, and then other people in the group, and I saw the power of it. And the whole focus of the group was to do processes, you know, the list of appreciation, gratitude list, whatever you want to call it, focus wheels, rampages, whatever. And then I started doing that. And then one day, I said to myself, okay, I'm going to do this for 30 days. I'm really going to put the effort in. If it goes well, great. If not, then I've done my best and I can leave it. So for 30 days, I really had to discipline myself. I didn't go clubbing. I had to go home and do my processes. And then I made it through the 30 days, and I thought, this is really good. And in between all of this, I was wheels and just different bits and pieces with people, and people were seeing changes happen in their lives. Like, I know one of my good friends, she had manifestations within hours about this, and that just went on and on and on. And then slowly I started developing my own YouTube, and I run my own group now, and, you know, it's just got bigger and bigger for me, and, you know, this kind of circle. But that's the biggest message I would have to impart to anyone. The difference between people who really make it and the people who get by is the daily practice. It doesn't have to be that way, but if you want to be deliberate, that would be my biggest piece of advice. 5 minutes a day, it doesn't take much more than that, and you know, things will change for you. I think that's the most consistent message that I've seen in groups and my groups and Tracy's groups and anyone who runs it. And, you know, for me, that's what made it.
Interesting, and I want to come back to that because, you know, this format and the way we broadcast it would lend itself so well, wouldn't it, to a communal practice and a focal point for making that practice happen. Because I must admit, I'm lazy and forgetful, I think it's fair to say sometimes, or, you know, not to be too down on myself, but just as a shorthand there, just to express the fact that I do my gratitude list and then good things happen and then I forget. It's like that story, isn't it? A wonderful story of the farmer who, you know, prays to God because he's single, you know, for a wife, and then he prays to God and the wife turns up, and then a little bit after, you know, he's saying, oh, thank you, God, that's so wonderful, thank you. And then he's praying again, oh, well, we'd like to start a family, can you help me with some kids? And he keeps praying along those lines, God, you know, how about some kids? And the kids turn up, and thank you, God, that's so wonderful. And then, you know, it's like, well, how about a bumper harvest? He's praying for that, and, you know, probably in Law of Attraction terms, visualizing the bumper harvest. That turns up, thank you, God, that's wonderful. And then years pass, and they go on, and there's a terrible drought, and he's on his knees in a dry field praying to God, saying, you know, please help me, any chance of a good harvest? And God says, I haven't heard from you for a while. And that's how it is. that's how it is for me, I think, is that I get good results from my gratitude list. I tend to forget, and then it's like I have to get grumpy or feel hard done by again to go back into the practice. So you make a very good point there, and it is about the practice, isn't it, and about the commitment and the discipline and the routine. Lots of words some aspects of us might not like, but you're bang on there.
I've never been one to I've certainly not disciplined. I've never enjoyed studying or any of those things where you have to do something, but my advice would be try it. See what happens. If you like it, carry on. If not, then that's fine. You've done your best, and just give yourself that chance. I think personally, from my experience and what I've seen, that would be it.
All right. Now I wanted to take you back a bit there because we were on the verge there of creating a daily practice online or on air, which would be absolutely wonderful. Maybe we should think about that. The beginning of the Barefoot Broadcaster at some point. In it, we do these exercises and stick to them. Maybe we should think about that. But you said your first experience of the cruise, and fair play to you, Nick, for going off on your own and just sort of thinking, okay, I want to do it and doing it. I think that's courageous, surrendering yourself to the unknown. Right?
Thanks. That's always been me. I've always done it. Yeah.
Cool. Happy with me. And you said it was a bit overwhelming, a bit uncomfortable, because of the intensity of the energy. Now, a lot of people would be a bit disappointed by that. Can you unpack that a bit and tell us a bit more about what it was like and what you mean by that?
Because the energy is so high, like Abraham's pretty much one of the highest vibrations around, you can react very differently. I mean, some people, Abraham has said that some people fall asleep, some people feel really uncomfortable. It depends on where your vibration is in relation to them. And that's why they say, when your friend's depressed and angry, that's not the time to tell them they create their own reality, because they would smack you around the head, and yes, rightly so.
Understandably. Yes,
because the vibrations are disparate. So, and for me, it was like the first time I'd come across this, and, even now, having to sit down for X amount of hours, it's still uncomfortable because I'm always fiddling about with one piece of technology or the other. But, having that, now considering that was my first experience with them, it was all very like, whoa. It was quite overwhelming. But I can say that only in relation to what it is now, because the cruise that I had was just so blissful. Like, it was really wow. So, and that's what I took from it. That, however discomfort or however uncomfortable you are, when you get out of it into a clearer space, what comes through is so much better. So that's why, whenever anyone's depressed or angry or hurting or serial killer or whatever, no matter how bad it is, whenever you come out of it, things will be so much better. That's why you've got to thank the contrast, and that's part of it. It's not kind of saying this is really hard now, life's crap. It's saying, well, okay, this is bad now, but I trust that when I get out of it, it'll be fine. And any celebrity can attest to that.
Yes, indeed. And good evening to all the folks we've had a little group of people piling into the chat room. Good evening to you all. Good evening to everybody listening. You're listening to the Law of Attraction in Action show with Nick Fon. Carl Munton here, the Barefoot Broadcaster, talking to Nick in this, our first proper show together, just to launch Nick into his Law of Attraction in Action career here on the Barefoot Broadcast. As the weeks unfold, Nick will be looking at the finer points of the Law of Attraction and helping you put it into action in your life. And I say that, I mean, it's not that you can't not put it into action. It is in action in your life, and maybe we'll come back to that. I just wanted to acknowledge LOA Gary, Nick, for saying that he's working on his gratitude list right now. Good man, that's what we like to hear. And also, good evening to Shannon, who's listening in from Texas. Shannon, welcome. Nick is here. So these groups in London, you're an amazing chap, Nick, because you're quite prolific, I think, in what you do. And we whizzed through all these major achievements of yours in London. So you started going to, what's Michael's second name? Because I do get his emails as well.
Michael James.
Yeah, Michael James. He runs all sorts of LOA groups in London, right? And you started going, and then you started running your own, is that right?
Yeah, because I went to his, and that's why I learned how, to actually put the processes in practice. And for me, I'm very, well, you say prolific, I say flitty. Like, something will catch my attention, I'll do that for a month or weeks, I'm a half decent standard, and, I'll move on, and, I dabble in so many things. I'm pretty decent at most things, is kind of how I like to put it. So, and then I went to this, and I thought, I've always been a teacher. Whatever I could. I've taught dance, I've taught photography. I think teaching's just who I am naturally. I just love to share. And then when I was in this, I just thought, I'd love to do this myself in my own way, put my own stamp. Because the interviews that I think we'll play next week, because I think I'm working next week. What I found was that everyone will have their own way of teaching, and although all the people I interviewed are from the same camp, the Abraham Hicks, the Secret Law of Attraction camp, you could not tell that necessarily from what they say, because they pick out a different thread which speaks to them, because everyone's individual, everyone has their own experience, everyone has their own view on how to apply it. So, everyone has their own stamp on it, and I just thought, well, I'd like to do it my own way. And so I started my group about November, whatever it was, 2010 or 2010 it must have been, because what are we now?
Yeah, that's
2009, right. Whatever. Anyway, it's been going for a year and a bit. And,
okay, 2009 then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
yeah.
For somebody wanting to do a similar thing in another part of the world who may be listening to this because we were saying, weren't we, it's not like, well, they may well pick up a book about the law of attraction, but you can be hit, and I use the word advisedly, in so many ways by personal development messages now. If someone is interested in the law of attraction, they're inspired as you were, having found out some more about it, and they're thinking, I know, a really good way for me to learn more about this is by teaching it to other people. And it's also a really good way of creating a community around me of supportive people who think the way I do and are going to be, helping me create a can-do, well, a vortex, a community vortex, if you like. What would you say to people about going about setting up a group? How did you do it, and what's the best way to do it?
I actually love that you asked that question, because so many people have asked me about this, about setting up their own group in and around London and around the place. Meetup.com, I think, is the website, is personally, I think, one of the best websites for this kind of thing, because the costs are minimal. It's like, I don't know, £5-10 a month, if that, to host up to 3 groups of your choosing. You have, as a leader, or a teacher or facilitator, I think you have to please yourself, because knowing law of attraction as I do, that has to come first and foremost. And people don't get that necessarily who are or aren't involved in law of attraction. You have to please yourself first. You have to do the things that you enjoy, because if you do that, then you'll set your vibrational tone, and anyone else who likes that will join you, and anyone who doesn't. Because as a leader or instigator or whatever, people think, okay, what would this person like? Or what should I do here? Or will they like this? Will they like that? And your energy splits in so many ways. You just have to keep your vibration pure to what you want. And this goes for anything. And let law of attraction bring those who like it to you. And you have to trust that they do. So first and foremost, that has to be the continuous thread that goes through the work that you do. When it comes to Meetup, it's literally setting up a group about what you do, what you want to achieve in the group, why should someone go there. After you set up that group, paid the fee, whatever, Meetup will send emails to those who are interested in your topics, so law of attraction, self-help, empowerment, and they'll send emails out, and then they'll join your group. And then from there, you set a venue, you set a charge if you want to charge, and away you go. Hopefully people will turn up and stuff. But again, it's just letting go of, is anyone going to show up? Are they going to enjoy it? It's just going to be a mix. So you just have to keep your tone to what you like. I think that's the biggest thing that I would say when doing anything. Yeah,
yours has obviously worked. What did you decide to focus on, and what's the thing that you really love to do?
What I learned, and it has been a learning curve, even knowing what I know now and doing what I do. When I first started, it was scary, obviously, because you're putting yourself in a public forum. But it was like, oh, should I do this or should I do that? And I was doing it. I did that I think I did that every week for X amount of months, and I thought this is too much. It's starting to feel like work. And as soon as something feels like work to me, I want to drop it like a hot potato. So summer of last year, I said, I'm going to stop. I'm going to take a few months out, enjoy it. Now, from January, I run it once every month, and the attendance has like grown significantly. And Thursday, I'm holding my biggest group yet, and my room's tiny, but that'll work out. So for me, what I do is I do an introduction, meditation. Everyone introduces themselves, and I just teach them processes, and we close, and that's about 1.5 to 2 hours. I think for me, it's more the vibe in the room that you just walk out on such a high, especially as an attendee. It's like such a buzz in the air. And because like when you go to work, it's easy for someone to say, oh, the weather's crap today. Oh yeah, my car broke down. Everyone joins in. Whereas in these forums, you set a tone and people only speak about the good that's going on in their life. So for that 1.5 hours, they're focused in that place of pure well-being. And they walk away so happy. But as I say, the magic doesn't go on in the group. The magic goes when you go away, go home, and apply it to your daily life. And that's when everything pulls together. So the groups are just a distraction or an inspiration point for someone to jump off.
But presumably it has become a focal point for people's weekly practice, but something of a social thing as well. It must be lovely to be in the regular, I mean, it's a bit like the Barefoot broadcast. You begin to have a sense of community, don't you, that people find hard to do without in a funny sort of way.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the social thing overrides whatever happens in the group. I think people enjoy, because some people don't know anyone they can talk about this. I'm very blessed. I mean, I hear that a lot, like from other people, oh, I can't talk to this about them, or whether it's my workmates or my friends, I mean, I think one of my gifts is sensitivity, so I can present it in a way that somebody else will hear it. It's not, oh, well, here's Abraham, there's some dead people who come through this woman and this husband, you know what I mean? It's presenting it in a way that somebody else can hear it, and you don't have to do that, but, I feel that that's something that I can do quite well. And, yeah, the social aspect is phenomenal. And also everyone brings to the table the best of who they are. Like, I may see that person once, I might see that person every month, but you only see the best of that person. And that's what attraction is. It's seeing the best in someone, so that's all you activate in them. And, they are life-changing. I remember one particular person came to my group, one of my first sessions. Well, actually, it's happened quite a few times. And I hadn't seen them for a year and a half, so you don't know, did they enjoy it? Did they hate it? Did they apply it? What? And then they come back just to touch base with you and say, yeah, one of the women, she manifested a house that, that she was talking about like a year ago. And another woman said, I'm just so much happier. And I think that's the biggest thing for me, just people to come back happy, and you can see the weight has lifted off them, and they're just not as stressed or as worried as they were before, and that's absolutely amazing to see.
But hold on a minute, that's absolutely awesome, isn't it? Let me come back to this, because this is quite extraordinary. You keep slipping these things in as though it probably is normal life for you, but it isn't normal life for most people, I don't think. So let's just unpack that in just a moment, if I can find the right jingle to play here. I'm getting so many things on my virtual cartridge player here. Here we go.
You're listening to Nick Fon's Law of Attraction in Action show. Find out more at www.thebarefootbroadcast.com.
Yes, a woman comes back to Nick Fon's Law of Attraction group saying, yes, the house I was hoping to manifest has indeed manifested. Not many people go to school, do they, or work, saying stuff like that in relation to the activity they're involved in.
That is, I mean, and now you point it out, I guess it is a big thing, but for me it's like, oh, well, that should be normal for you.
Of course, that's how life really works.
For me, I'm like, with anything, it's like, it is what it is. I am who I am. It's no biggie. It is what it is. Like, I'm no thrilled or whatever. So, good for her, good for you, But on a side note, I mean, it isn't about the manifestation. What is wonderful about these groups is people hear these wonderful stories of, oh, I manifested this relationship, or the money came to me, and that's all great, make no bones about it. That's how most people come into it. But for me, it's gone beyond that, and if someone says to me, what have you manifested? I'm like, I don't even know, because on a daily basis things are so great. But it's just being happier, and that's what Abraham and the teachers have put across now. You have to be happy without the manifestation, because If you're not, then it won't come, and manifestation's a science thing, and it's all wonderful. But on the second note, something will happen to me that I'm like, oh, yeah, that was nice. Brush it off. When 6 months ago, if that had happened, that's huge, but I wasn't up to speed with it. So it has to be next logical step, and it's kind of all that meshing together.
Yep, you're quite right. It is almost right to take it for granted, isn't it? Because if you make such a big deal of it, yeah, but if you do make a big deal of it, you are putting vibrational space between you and that, aren't you? You know that thing about people saying, I can't believe I won all that money, and the next thing they know, something comes up in their life that costs all that money because they really couldn't believe it.
That's
now, the
very
other thing
true.
that you mentioned there as well, and one of the great reasons why people love coming along to your group is because they couldn't possibly speak about it to anyone else they know. They don't want to be shunned as a pariah by their family and friends. You said that once you got into this, you put it into practice in not only your own life, but you were helping friends and family. I'm very interested because a lot of people who are into spirituality find that their family aren't the most receptive place for their new ideas. Guess what, everybody? I know how I can manifest a house now, and all the sort of family are looking skyward thinking, well, what's this latest thing they're into now? It sounds as though your family are a bit more receptive than that.
Ish. I'd have to say. I mean, one thing is my sister who's just walked in now, we get on like... I'd have to say it goes with you as a person. So whoever resonates with you as a person, they'll like whatever you bring to the table. And I think that's one of the clips I heard a while ago, which really resonated with me. A mother was speaking to Abe, and she's like, "I want to buy my son the well-being cards for his birthday or whatever." And Abraham are like, "That's fine, but what are you doing it? What's the place that you're doing it from? I see you need help, therefore here's this thing to fix your life," or "I love this so much, I just thought you would love it." And that's the kind of difference in vibration. And they said, when you're with friends who you feel good with, no matter what they bring to the table, you'll take it because of who they are and not what they're bringing. And I think that's kind of how I work with my friends. It's not like I'm forcing these things on them. I'm like, this sounds great, and if you want to listen to it too, then, here's a clip. And people will want to learn from you because of the example of who you are, and that's a big thing. Teach you the clarity of your example. I just remember coming home one day for something, and I said, "Oh, this happened," and my sister said, "How did you do that?" So I just coached her through a focus, and she's like, "Oh, that is good, isn't it?" I mean, she doesn't do it religiously like I do, but she's a lot happier, and it's just that ease. And even my friends, like, you don't have to teach this directly, but it's just saying to them, you know what, I know you can do this, because some of my friends would just like close it off if I said, this is what happened to channeling. But if they say, oh, I'm not getting on with my mum or my workmate or manager, like, don't worry, I'll be fine. And that's enough for them to hear, for them to take it, and because they like who you are, they'll want to be around you more, and, it happens like that.
Yep, fair enough. Okay, so on a personal level, of course, as well, what sort of things have you achieved, realized? I know, you were saying the most important thing is the ongoing feel-good factor and the sense that you're having a great life. I mean, what more could anyone ask than that? And obviously that's the best climate for further attraction. But what are some of the sort of material, significant physical things that you've been pleased to bring about in your life as a result of being involved with this and putting it into practice?
That's a good question, because I haven't actually thought about that for a while, but I think abundance, I guess. I mean, like the things that I do, I'm on I don't want to tell this story, but I'm on a half decent wage. It really isn't like huge by most people's standards, but I get everything I want. If I want something, I'll make sure that I get it. It's not, I don't split my energy about abundance. If I want to go on holiday, I will, but by the same token, if I can't go on a holiday, then I'll make my peace with that. So, abundance, if you look around me, I'm quite abundant, but but for me, it's like, it's just everyday thing, whereas somebody else might think, oh wow, he went on a cruise, that's phenomenal, how the hell did he afford that? But it's like, well, if I want to go, I'll go, and, I'll put everything in place to go, but if I don't want to go, then, I'll make my peace with that. So I guess abundance, relationships are so much, everything's just so much better. Like, you'll send out a thought, and you'll just have these wonderful people come into your life. And my groups, they're expanding And I know that that's a reflection of my consciousness, because that's something that you can't force people. It's just a vibrational thing. And I mean, going back when I first started in the first year, I kept lists and lists of manifestations that I had, my friends had, anyone who I'd worked with, and this was anything from, well, houses to relationships to money coming through. But I've stopped that a long time ago, because it's just, I don't need to prove anything to anyone now. It's just, you know, I know it works for me, and I can't see how it can't. So I'm well beyond making lists of that. But I know when I first started, I kept Excel spreadsheets of stuff that people had manifested. For proof, because people would turn to me and say, well, what did you manifest? And I'm like, well, I had this, and this client had this, but for me, it's just way beyond that now, so it's not something that I really pay attention to. But,
and when people ask silly questions like I just did, you could have always pulled out the Excel spreadsheet, couldn't you? But
yeah, because people would always want to know that, but again, you'll know for you, you know.
Yes.
That's good too.
All right, superb. So bringing us up to date then, you have come back from another cruise. How many Abe cruises have you been on now?
It's 3. It's about 1 a year. I see it as my annual vibration top-up.
That sounds brilliant. Annual vibration top-up, the AV2 break. Nice acronym. So tell us about this one, Nick, and also your experience of Esther Hicks and the cruise atmosphere. Tell us all about it. What's it like being there?
For me, it went well beyond the seminars, because what happens is you've got about 7 to 14 days, depending on the length of your cruise, and X amount of that will be spent island hopping. And the day that you're at seas, you'll have a lecture with Esther and Jerry and Abraham, and you'll be in this huge theatre, and they'll be calling up different people to the hot seat, and, you know, much like their usual seminars, but you get maybe 10 to 12 hours spread over the week. But for me, like, I think most people would resonate with this. It wasn't even about the lecture, just the social experience of it was so phenomenal. Because the first show I went on my own, so I didn't really know anyone, so I was quite happy to be by myself, and that's who I am anyway. Second show, I went with a friend, and we did make half of an effort to socialise with other people, but not so much. But this year we thought, we'll go out and out, we'll go to the shows, we'll go to dinners, and that was by far and away the best experience, just meeting people, and it was just the best experience ever. I can't, you know, recommend it enough. It really was amazing. The dinners, the service, the life. All you have to do is breathe, and everything else taken care of. You know, it really is the best experience I had.
That's brilliant. All you have to do is breathe. Brilliant.
It is. You just pick up the phone and, you know, room service. But by the same token, I know some people will be listening to this and think, oh, I couldn't afford a cruise, or I don't even want to go on a cruise. You don't have to. You can do it. And again, with technology, you can do it from your own living room. You don't need to leave your bed to be able to connect with whoever you want in whatever way you want. So whilst cruise is great, if you can't go on it, if you don't want to go on it, then, you know, don't. You know, it's fine. And you know,
it's not required behaviour by any means, is it, to get the law of attraction into action in your life? The obvious question is, you know, what's it like meeting Esther Hicks? What was it like for you? I mean, it's so possible, isn't it, and very probable that people build up a huge admiration for her because of the wonderful information that's brought and such tremendous relief, insight, inspiration. How long was it, or sort of how excited were you, and how long had you known about her, and what was it like that particular moment? Because I think you brushed shoulders in the corridor, didn't you, and thought you'd grab your moment.
I actually grabbed the poor lady.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. I hate to say this, but they are the nicest people you'll ever meet. I'm not big into guru worship or heads of figures, but, you know, not to sound like one of their disciples, but they are just the most phenomenal people you'll ever meet. Like, they really live what they teach, and, you know, they're just so lovely. You know, aside from Abraham, like, we bumped into the hallway with them, and she's like, and Esther's like, oh, look at the pink on the carpet, isn't that pretty? And it was just so simplistic, it was just so childlike, but you could tell there was pure appreciation going on for that little pink in the carpet, you know. But I had known about them a good few months, and then I went to see them in Mexico, and that was the first time I saw them, and I said that was a bit uncomfortable, and it was. But just being in the room with them, it's just like everything goes silent, vibrationally, like you just struck with this, like, wow. And then they do their lectures, and then after that I went to see them at the end of that year in Phoenix, And that was the second time I saw them, and I got in the hot seat, and that was lovely talking to them. You know, really
Tell us
was
what you
nice.
mean by that, Nick. What is the hot seat, and how does that work for somebody who's no idea what you mean by that?
Basically, I think anyone who knows satsang or any of those kind of teacher style, you just raise your hand, you have a question, you go up to the hot seat, which is basically a chair, and you ask your question or questions, and it could be any. And with them, they ask anything about everything. So it could be anything from how do I get more money to what will happen to me when I die, to how can I heal this relationship, to what is sex about, to whatever, and they'll give you an answer. And, you know, that's how they work. That's pretty much the only way they teach, and anything on YouTube or their lectures, that's the format. A group of people, hand goes up in the air, they'll pick you, you go into the hot seat, ask your question, and they'll have a dialogue. And that's simply how it works.
Wow. And I'm thinking, you know, that's quite a risky strategy, isn't it, for any spiritual teacher or somebody in that position, the satsang hot seat, the person receiving the questions. They don't ask you to write them down beforehand. You don't have to send anything ahead. It's live and right there in the moment, is it?
Yeah. And you can ask about anything, and they'll have an answer. I mean, them being who they are, you know, infinite intelligence or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, they'll have an. I mean, it's like Solomon. It's like Jay and Solomon is the same kind of principle. I mean, it's the same with any forum. Even when people come up and ask questions or make comments in my group, I'll have my two pence piece worth of information to put in, whether they like it or not. But I mean, that, you know, you come to my group, you come to hear me speak a little. So that's who I am. So same diff, really.
So then we're thinking, okay, so the videos we see and the CDs we get, that's going to be the edited highlights. And all the questions they couldn't answer, and by they, we are talking about the collective intelligence of Abraham that is channeled or brought to us by Esther Hicks and supported by Jerry Hicks. But you could be forgiven for thinking, okay, so they just put all the best ones on the CDs and in the books and on the videos. In your experience, having been there, presumably there are no bad questions, that they just consistently come up with the goods, right?
Absolutely. There's, you know, but then again, it's interesting you say that, because they do put the best of their work out there, but by the same token, what's best for you is not best for me. So, and that's why the questions have continued, because they've been doing this 20, 30 years, you know, literally gajillions of questions out there asked, but there'll always be an answering, and they answer more than the question that they have, because you might say to someone, how do I attract more money? But they'll be able to tap into your vibration. We believe that they tap into your vibration, so they'll give the answer specific to you. So they'll be like, well, we'll feel this about you. And they're answering the question for the whole of the group and, you know, the wider listeners, which is why Abraham Live, you know, Jerry said to Abraham, how the hell are you going to answer people's questions when they're on the internet at home who have no direction, so it's all vibration, isn't it? So, yeah, it's amazing.
And that's what's coming, is it?
Yeah. They did their first live broadcast on Saturday, and it was a success. And they're starting to roll this out. Again, you don't even have to leave your living room to experience it in a live form. Amazing. You know, I was on a night shift. I woke up at like 4:50, switched my computer on. They went live at 5. I didn't have to leave my bed. You know, that's how wonderful it is. So it's accessible to people on all levels. We've
got 3 minutes to go. I mean, I just want to say thank you very much for telling us, you know, your story about how you got into the law of attraction, what it means to you, and maybe we should end by you sharing with us all the various ways that you can help people, your meetings, your particular skills, and what people can look forward to in the coming weeks here on this show.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I've got my YouTube channel, which is fairly big. I mean, most Abers know it. It's called Abe Nicks, ABENICKS, and that's got pretty much everything. I hope to upload this interview, and that's kind of where I channel all my work into, so that's a nice base for people to touch. Information on my meetup groups, if you just do an Abraham Law of Attraction search for London, then you'll find me, and my group's once a month on every Thursday. And for the future shows, just a lovely conversation with you, Carl. You know, I think what I really like, and I've experienced that fully tonight, is just the way you put people at ease, and it just feels very, very nice conversation. So
great. Yeah. Well, pleasure. Yeah, and we're inviting participation as well. So anybody who you, I'm just thinking carefully how to put this. I mean, we don't want people rounding their friends up and sticking them in front of the internet on a Tuesday evening as a network marketing meeting. We don't want it to be like sort of, no disrespect to Amway, but you know those sort of presentations where you get taken along and you have to sit there for an hour, like thinking, oh my God, what is this?
Jerry Hicks used to work for Amway.
Did he? Did he build a really good business? I bet he did.
Yeah, he was worth millions, and that was his first thing into kind of thinking and growing rich.
Isn't that amazing? Incredible. Wow. Okay. Well, invite your friends. Don't make them come along and sort of pretend you're giving them cheese and wine and then turn the radio on and sneakily introduce Law of Attraction. If they're asking you, what is it that's putting that smile on your face, you could tell them it's the Barefoot broadcast. Do you want to come round and listen to Nick Fon on the Law of Attraction in action on a Tuesday night? Or even just send them the link. And anybody who wants to come on air and be talked through a focus wheel or just get a bit of finessing and a bit of a tip or two from Nick, this is the place to be. UK time, 9 until 10. So, Nick, thank you very much. It's been lovely talking to you, and that's just about it now, and we'll see you next week.